All right, the time has come. The time has come for us to decide the best Marvel comic animated shows, because your geek history lesson on Marvel comic animated shows is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I am Jason Excelsior Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, where you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or Marvel superhero team from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about them in about an hour, except today, because it's a list episode.
Yes.
Just like last week.
Yes, last week we did DC, the best DC Comics animated shows with the excellent Sam Humphries, and it just seemed natural and fun to make this the best Marvel Comics animated shows. So it's really good. Now, of course, our lists are always based on our favorites, not the objective best. But before we get into talking about that, I do want to talk about something that is for the objective best. We want to bring your attention to something called the Ringo Awards.
Hey, what's
named
that?
for the amazing artist Michael Ringo, who drew a lot of Marvel Comics stuff. And you can nominate any fan, any pro, any podcast listener can nominate comic books in the Ringo Awards over at ringoawards.com. That's RINGOAWARDS. That, of course, will be in our description below the podcast. And we'd love if you went over there and nominated our kids comic book, our all ages comic book, Science, The Elements of Dark Energy, for the best kids comic / graphic novel of 2019. Now, there's all kinds of things there. You can vote best writer, best artist, all the kind of things. But we mainly want all of you listeners to please nominate our all ages comics, Science, The Elements of Dark Energy, for the Ringo Awards Best Kids Comic / Graphic Novel. In fact, Fanbase Press called it a fun sci-fi adventure story. And I know if you do go to the Ringo Awards and you do vote, and you send a screenshot to us, I know, Ashley, we're giving them a nice little thank you, aren't we?
We're giving them a nice little digital bundle of things that they can read that helped us, that inspired the creation of Science. And so many people listening got Jupiter Jet Volume 1 nominated last year, so we're hoping that, like some of the teams we're going to talk about today, you will assemble behind the power of science.
Yeah, so go do that at ringoawards.com. Again, any person can vote. You just have to have an email.
It's the best thing. In fact, vote with every email that you have access to.
Okay.
Vote early, vote often.
Yes, there you go. All right, so let's move into our list of the best Marvel comics the best Marvel comic animated shows of all time. Again, these are our favorites, not our objective best. And actually, if they want to submit their best Marvel comic animated shows of all time, where can they do that?
The best place for them to do that is to go to facebook.com/Geek History Lesson or hit us up on Twitter at GHL Podcast. We'd love to see lists. Also, if you're a patron, please comment on this post, which you have early access to.
Yes. All right. The list has begun. Ashley, what is your number 5 for the best Marvel comic animated shows? Actually, before we get to that, I just want to interrupt this real quick.
Okay. Interrupt yourself.
This list was tough. Yeah.
I'm gonna be completely honest. None of my shows started before the year 2000.
Okay.
They are all modern shows. Yeah, this was really hard. The DC list was very easy.
Well, the DC list was because there was a lot of there were so many choices for the top 5 that you kind of had to be like, oh, which one am I going to cut?
Yeah. I don't have any also rants for this.
This one was just, for me, hard to figure out what was going to be number 4 and number 5.
I will agree with that, yes. And I think some people are going to be mad.
Whatever. It's interesting. I think we said this last week, but it is a thing that typically DC Comics does better on animated shows and Marvel does better at movies.
Typically. Although I will say to Marvel's great credit, some of the newer stuff has been very cool.
Sure.
Very cool.
All right. Ashley, now, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is a show that I got introduced to through you, Jason.
Through me.
It is a Man of Action cartoon, as most of these are. And that is, in the words of Captain America, not at the end of Age of Ultron, Avengers Assemble. Which is kind of, in my estimation, the Second best Avengers cartoon.
Spoiling a lot of your list already. This is going to be a really short podcast.
Yeah. That's happened. It's the I want to say it's the more recent.
It is the modern one.
Avengers cartoon.
It was sort of started after Age of Ultron, and it's sort of based on the movie stuff.
Yes, and one thing that I think it does well is a lot of the Marvel cartoons happened either to tie into or as a part of the brand synergy after, like the Black Panther cartoon, for example, which is not on my list, have to tie directly into the movies. And it kind of starts with Avengers Assemble. The costumes and the character designs are a little more movie-esque, although blessedly, Hawkeye still looks like Hawkeye from the comics. And what I like about this show is I did not enjoy the show when it first started. But recently, through you and being inspired by you, I've come to appreciate some of the later stuff that happens here. And this is something that I'm going to say about most of these Marvel cartoons. Marvel cartoons are slow out of the gate, and they're one-offy, and they're kind of lame. And then later on, probably when executives don't care anymore, they get wild and they do all kinds of comic book tie-ins, and they call back to events. And that is very much this cartoon, and they kept adding more and more characters once we got out of season 1, and doing like really strange things, like the Squadron Supreme shows up in this, which I never thought I was ever gonna go see. Nuke is in this, and I actually think that this show evolves into a really, really decent Avengers cartoon. It just takes a minute and a half to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's my number 5. Jason, cool. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is a show that is completely different from your show. So different
Earth's Mightiest Heroes?
That it has the exact same title. Avengers Assemble is also my number 5!
Hey, I knew this was probably on your list somewhere.
It is the most recent of the Avengers cartoons, or at least the ones with the main team. But you are correct. When this show first came out, because I was a huge fan of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
America Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
That when they canceled that show and they replaced it with this, and I watched the show, I was not a fan. You are correct. The first season of the show is pretty rough.
It is rough.
And this is also the difference between Avengers Assemble and Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, is that Avengers Assembles are all one-off episodes. Now, they do have continuing threads, but mainly it's a one and done, whereas Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes like had serialized storylines through multiple episodes.
Yeah, but then they do get into weird, like they do like Secret Wars at one point.
Well, that's amazing. They do Secret Empire on them. Let's not talk about that cartoon.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we're going to talk about that cartoon quite a bit. But you are correct. Yeah, Avengers Assemble got to be really good when they got to stop just being like, this are the adventures of the movie Avengers that you didn't see on screen, and Falcon. The thing that brought me onto this show, and I had no idea about this, is when a good friend of the podcast, David Gallagher, told me that the Thunderbolts appeared. That this show does a 4-episode arc with the Thunderbolts, and it's amazing. Another thing you forgot, Squadron Supreme is here. There's a lot of Doctor Doom stuff. There's a Secret Wars. The Ultimates are in this Avengers cartoon.
Yes.
They do a lot of crazy stuff in there, and because of that, there's a lot of fun stuff in this cartoon, but it is not the greatest Avengers cartoon.
It is not the greatest Avengers
But I am glad that we do live in a world where there's now more than one good Avengers cartoon. But yes, I agree with you exactly, Ashley. Avengers Assemble definitely deserves to be in this top 5, and I'm glad we both put it right at the top 5.
Yay!
So, although for me, I always feel that when you say Avengers Assemble, you go, Avengers Assemble! Not Avengers Assemble. Yeah. How did all 5,000 of those people in game hear that?
Maybe
Assemble.
Scarlet Witch was using her incomprehensible powers to telepathically share Steve Rogers' melodic tones into everybody's brain.
You know, fun fact, there is a deleted scene at the end of Avengers Endgame where right when the movie cuts and goes to end credits, Steve leans over into Peggy's ears and goes, Assemble.
Jesus Christ.
And she goes, what, Steve? What was that mean? He goes, nothing, Peggy. It was a different timeline. Or is it the same timeline? I'm so confused with time travel. But you know what is not confusing? Ashley, what's your number 4?
Time travel. My number 4, and I'm just going to say this before anyone gets any kind of way about it.
Oh, wait. Can I make a guess?
Sure. You're not going to guess this.
I have a feeling your number 4 starts off with a theme song that goes, Reed Richards is elastic. Sue can vanish from sight.
Remember when I said nothing before 2000 was on my list? There's definitely
Johnny is the Human Torch, and the Thing just likes to fight.
Is that the one that Herbie's in?
Fantastic Four.
Because they thought that Johnny would encourage people to light themselves on fire?
No, that's the 60s Fantastic Four. I was doing the theme song to the 60s Fantastic
What's
Four.
the theme song to that really crappy anime version of Fantastic Four?
Oh, the 2000s one? Fantastic Four World's Greatest Heroes? I got it for you. Something like that.
Sounds like Batman Beyond.
No.
Okay, so my number 4 isn't technically a TV show. It's
Ashley, this is best Marvel comic book animated shows. What the hell did you pick?
It's technically according to Marvel cum Disney, a transmedia experience.
Oh my God, what did you pick?
That was created to sell toys.
What is this?
And all of these shows debuted on the Marvel HQ YouTube channel before they debuted on the Disney Channel.
Okay, we might be allowing this.
It's Marvel Rising.
Oh, I'll allow it.
Okay, I really like Marvel Rising. I think it is super cute.
What is it?
Marvel Rising is the 2018 to present. It is still in production. Female-centric team of heroes. They call them, what do they freaking call them? The team from S.H.I.E.L.D. that I guess, Secret Warriors.
Oh, they call themselves the Secret Warriors?
They call themselves the Secret Warriors.
Oh, interesting.
They are led by Chloe Bennett, Daisy, whatever her name is. I can't remember because I don't care. She's in there. Ghost Spider's in there. Squirrel Girl's in there. Miss Marvel's.
Do they call her Ghost Spider instead of Spider-Gwen?
They do.
Oh, I don't like that.
And it's a series of 22 and 44-minute specials where they go on one-off adventures. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of continuity between each of them, but it does a really good job at highlighting what is special and unique about each of these characters. They do tie directly into the movies. So there's
they do?
The 4th one is called Marvel Rising Operation Shuri. So after the events of Black Panther, Shuri comes over and joins the team for a while.
So Ghost Spider is technically in the continuity of the MCU, sort of.
Yes, so's Ironheart.
Wow.
Because the second one is Marvel Rising Heart of Iron.
Ashley, are you leading to an action figure spotlight? Because if you're not, I am disappointed.
I am, because like I said, this line kind of only exists to sell the
and
Marvel Rising.
Nothing wrong with that. Secret Wars and Super Friends did the same thing back in the past.
We've had incredible comic books and movies that have done that as well. And I'm not talking about Trolls World Tour, but this line is really an answer to DC Superhero Girls, which we did not highlight in our DC animated episode, but both versions of DC Superhero Girls freaking rock. And
the toys are great. The show's
cute. The books are really good.
The books are great.
But so they made these incredible, they're not Barbie dolls because they're not made by Mattel. The DC ones are, the Marvel ones are not. But they're 12-inch dolls. And then they created all this other media to sell them. And then a year later, Marvel did the same thing. And I actually don't own any of these, even though I love a number of them. And they started with 5. I think it was Quake, Ghost Spider, Squirrel Girl, Miss Marvel, and Miss America were the original 5.
Actually, I hate to correct you on this,
but
please. You actually do own one because you were given a gift of Miss Marvel.
Oh, by Jeremy Skinner.
By excellent
That's
listener
true.
and Tulsa, Oklahoma native and my old college and best friend.
You are correct.
Jeremy Skinner.
I do apologize, Jeremy. She's not up on my shelf with the superhero girls.
I was like, what are you talking about? You definitely own one of these. You have always wanted to buy the Ghost Spider one.
Yes, I have, and I haven't done it yet.
And I think you have to go all eBay now.
Oh, yeah.
If a listener
someone wants to send it to me,
if a listener has Ghost Spider from Marvel Rising and wants to send it to our PO box, shoot us an email, geekhishlesson@gmail.com. We'll send you something cool.
That would be amazing. They've since made Shuri and Riri as well, or Riri or Ironheart.
Yeah,
of the unfortunate name. Mm-hmm. But I love what this show represents. I love that they take it across all platforms. I could do without the tie-in to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that's just because I'm not super fond of the TV show.
What is the tone of these? Because I've actually never seen this one.
It's exactly like Superhero Girls. It's very like all ages. The target market for this is probably about, I'd say, 6 to 8.
Okay. Do you find they're very kidsy?
They're very kidsy.
Okay.
Yes. But for me, that's not. I have no issue with that.
I was just curious. Again, I this is not on my list. I have never seen these.
No, and that's
I know
okay.
of them.
They're very much. I would say you're outside of the target audience. But that's what I love especially about this is I'm on their press list, so they always send me advanced screeners of them.
But none of the dolls.
None of the dolls. They never send
crap.
out the physical media. That's something that Marvel's not great at. That Warner Brothers is really great at. Warner Brothers will just send you everything.
Marvel will
Disney's like, you're going to goddamn pay for this.
Warner Brothers will deluge you in physical items. Yes.
Yeah, Jason and I are still, and this is not a complaint, drowning in Wonder Woman stuff. They send us so much stuff, which is lovely. Please send us Wonder Woman 84 things whenever that movie comes out. But I don't think a lot of people outside of people who are into YA or maybe people who have children are into Marvel Rising. I would really encourage you, if any of this sounds interesting, go check it out. They're all free on the YouTube channel. They're super, super easy to find.
Wait, do you know the name of the YouTube channel?
It is the Marvel HQ YouTube channel.
Okay, so youtube.com/Marvel HQ.
Yeah. Or I'm sure you can just Google Marvel Rising and it will, I'm sure there's some link that will hyperlink you over to that.
I'm certain that is as well, Ashley.
Yes. The one I would recommend if you don't want to watch all of them, I think the best one is the Marvel Rising Battle of the Bands. That's the Ghost Spider.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Do
they fight the Wild Stallions?
No, it's the Ghost Spider one. They're being attacked by a supersonic villain, and because Gwen Stacy's in a band, they use her musical abilities to defeat the villain.
Can I ask you a question here?
Yes.
Because this is generally something that happens in toy lines. Do they redesign anybody's costume? Like, is Ghost Spider's costume basically the same?
It's basically the same.
No added lines or colors or anything like that?
There's nothing. I mean, they're redesigned because it's the house style of the show. Quake is probably the one who gets the craziest redesign. Well, because they've taken her black leather suit, which is like pretty nondescript in the show, and they've kind of zhuzhed it up.
Yeah,
for
Quake really doesn't have a costume in the comics or on any of the shows.
Yeah, but no, like all of the comic book characters, and Shuri looks like Shuri in the movie.
I was just curious
because like a voluptuous Shuri from the comics.
Yeah, like a lot of times, like Batman and Total Justice, like they completely redesign the costumes.
No, it's not. It's not that wild.
Okay,
no.
cool.
But so Marvel Rising,
great choice,
because I think it's an underrated one.
Yeah,
and if you don't think it's a cartoon, that's your problem and not mine.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, what is your number 4?
My number 4 has an amazing theme song. It starts with Reed Richards is. No, it doesn't.
You're not. That's not on your list.
No, I don't like that cartoon. My number 4 actually does have the best theme song of any Marvel cartoon. And Ashley,
them's fighting words.
And I'm gonna hum it for you, Ashley.
Okay.
And see if you recognize it. Okay, here we go.
I'm ready.
Da 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 na now down 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 now down now. You don't recognize this theme song to Spider-Man, 1990s Spider-Man?
I mean,
because it goes
no.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
No.
Yeah, it's because it's that classical thing that I love. That this is something that some composers I've heard this in many interviews that they
I believe Christopher Drake is a big fan.
Christopher Drake is a big fan of this. John Williams is a big fan of that. Well, they will put the words into the song. Like, if you listen to the Superman theme song by John Williams, is like Superman, da 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 da, Superman. Yeah. So this one is the '90s Spider-Man, and I know everybody out there is like, no, X-Men has the better one. X-Men, no, this Spider-Man theme song.
I was going to say the X-Men theme is better.
I mean, it's overplayed. Anyways, the '90s version of Spider-Man is one of the best Spider-Man cartoons that have ever been made. I noticed,
Mr. Inman, that you said one of the best.
Oh, you're very clever. Anyways, this cartoon does not get the recognition or the legacy that it deserves because Spider-Man was big in the 90s and this cartoon is a big factor for why.
This cartoon is how I know who Morbius is.
Yes, this cartoon ran for 5 seasons.
Wow.
And I'm sorry, this cartoon is way better than the X-Men 90s cartoon. This cartoon also has held up way better than the 90s X-Men cartoon, which I'm sorry, my friends, is almost unwatchable.
Yeah, hot take, the X-Men 90s cartoon, we all loved it, and it was important
in the 90s,
all of us.
Loved it.
That show is bad.
It's
not on, I can tell you right now, it's not on either list.
This Spider-Man cartoon, yes, X-Men 90s is not on this list for me. this Spider-Man cartoon is almost watchable. Like, it is about 50% there.
Almost watchable. A ringing endorsement from acclaimed television writer Jason Inman.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've watched a couple episodes since they come on Disney Plus.
Some things don't age well. It's totally fair.
This holds up a hell of a lot better than X-Men. But this thing took all of the insane 60s and 70s Peter Parker storylines and made them relatable to a lot of young kids. It gives a lot of emotional depth to Peter Parker. In fact, it was the first time, I actually think the Sam Raimi movies are heavily inspired by this cartoon.
Oh, I think that's probably fair.
Now, the interesting thing and the downside about this thing is that at the time when they decided, they were like, oh, you know how we're going to do Spider-Man web swinging? All the buildings are going to be CGI and Spider-Man is going to be traditional. Now, that has not aged very well, but you got to give them credit for at the time to be like, you know what? That's how we're going to make the web swinging different than the old 60s Spider-Man cartoon where it just looked like a guy was holding the rope and just moving along.
Spider-Man and his friends.
And his amazing super friends, yes. But, the great thing about this storyline, about this cartoon, is the same thing that I said about Avengers Assembles. This Spider-Man show was the first show of anything outside of the comic books to tackle the symbiote, Venom. They do a version of the Clone Saga in here.
The Venom design in here is really great.
They do a version of Secret Wars. That insane storyline. In fact, Marv Wolfman, creator of Crisis on Infinite Earths, John Romita Sr., one of the original Spider-Man artists, Jerry Conway, one of the original comic book artists,
who killed Manuel Gwen Stacy,
and Len Wein, considered to be
legendary.
one of the greatest comic book writers of all time, creator of Wolverine
and Nightcrawler.
Yeah, and Nightcrawler. They all wrote episodes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Show. Also, many Marvel superhero show. Daredevil showed up on the show. Fantastic Four showed up on the show. Even the X-Men showed up on the show.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
And this show actually has one of the best final episodes of all time. It has to do all with Peter and Mary Jane.
Oh.
This show is like serialized cartoon storytelling before television became serialized. And I think that was one of the things. It's something that even Batman the Animated Series, the style of serialization that you see in Justice League later on, that comes from this cartoon. This cartoon did it first because when you watch episodes, you see the Symbiote Saga Part 1, and it would go to Part 5, Part 6.
Yeah, Batman, you'd be lucky to have a 2-part episode.
You'd be lucky.
The closest thing to continuity was when they changed the Robins.
Exactly. So this Spider-Man, the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, I think deserves a lot of recognition and it is a lot better than people give it. Most people always want to give this crown to X-Men, and I say, I'm putting my foot in the sand. No, it is Spider-Man of the 90s. That is the best Marvel 90s cartoon. It is Spider-Man.
Nice.
So there you go.
Well said.
Every
time you start that, you sound like you're doing Star Trek. Do 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 do. That's always what I think.
Anyways, number 3, Ashley. What is your number 3? And does it start with Reed Richards is elastic?
No, but Phil Lamar's a voice in it.
Ooh.
He's a voice in pretty much everything. This show technically didn't first air on television. It debuted.
Why are you pulling another one of these again?
On
Ashley,
the Disney XD app. And then later went to television for a second season and onward.
What is this?
This is my second Avengers edition on my list. Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the better Avengers show.
Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yes.
I didn't know it didn't premiere on
the first season only debuted on Disney XD, and then it was so popular that they ported it over as a miniseries to television, and then all subsequent series aired on both.
Oh, then that also explains. I remember watching that pilot where the pilot animation is not as good as the rest of it. So.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yeah, if you go in, and that's really true of the whole first season. If you go look at it, it's kind of like when you watch Young Justice, then you watch Young Justice season 3, and you're like, the budget went down. It's the opposite. The budget goes up on Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Well, I'm going to say this. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes season 2 is fantastic.
Yeah. Is Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes on your list?
Look, this is your list. Keep going.
Well, okay. This original
My 1 through 3 are all Fantastic Four cartoons. I think you need to know this.
Get out. There's one that I know is on your list, and I can't wait to see where it lands. This original team is pretty much the original Avengers team from the comics, which is super cool. We start out season 1 with Iron Man, Giant Man, Hulk, Thor, and Wasp.
You forgot Black Panther.
hold, please. That's the original team in the pilot.
Sure.
Wasp looks incredible. Wasp is so good in this show. In fact, when Ant-Man and the Wasp was coming out, I did a video on our YouTube channel of Wasp's best costumes, and I mentioned this costume because I would love to see a live action version of it. This costume is so cute. And then they added Captain America, Black Panther, and Hawkeye over the course of the first season. And then Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, and Jack Kirby join it in the second season. So Black Panther is actually not on the OG team. They build it out the same way they build out the team in the comics, which I think is really cool. And what I like a lot about this show is that Avengers hadn't quite taken over the whole world yet by storm. So you're still getting a lot of really, really weird comic book stuff. Like Enchantress is one of the first people that they fight. They build to a battle with the Masters of Evil at the end of season 1. So they're still pulling a lot of really weird references. Beta Ray Bill shows up in this show and looks horrifying.
Well, the pilot of that show is the storyline from New Avengers, where all the prisons of all the supervillains like explode and all those villains get out.
Yes, and when the pilot first aired on television, not on Disney XD, it was the same time that the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon aired, and a lot of people responded more strongly to the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon because it was Miles Morales' first outing besides the comic books. So a lot of people really got excited about that, and
well, Miles doesn't show up till like season 2 of that show.
But I feel like because Miles was finally in a TV show and everyone had been screaming, like, put Miles in something for so long, yourself included, even though I didn't know you at this time, I feel like that cartoon gets the recognition that this one deserves. This is a show that I feel like I didn't watch when it originally aired. I don't feel like anyone watched when it originally aired. And it was not until it came to Netflix originally that people really got into this. But this is the best Avengers show. Don't fight me.
I would love to rewatch this show.
I'm right.
I keep thinking about it every once in a while.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We got nothing but time. And by that, I mean we have no time.
All I will tell you is that this cartoon is on my list.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Okay, Jason, what's your number 3?
My number 3 has an amazing theme song. It starts with Reed Richards is elastic. No.
That's what 2 classes at UCB will get you. R.I.P.
My number 3 is a cartoon that I did not consider great until very recently. And I will say that this is
Bruce Banner, pelted by gamma rays. That's the cartoon Hulk.
I know. I know, Ashley.
Look, you're not the only one who can do theme song jokes.
Yeah. Am I?
No, you're not. That's what I said.
Aren't I?
No.
This is the only XMen cartoon that will be on my list. And I thought about which one to put on here. And, you know, it's funny, Ashley and I were palling through Disney Plus, or as I like to call it, Nostalgia Plus.
Star Wars Plus.
Star Wars Plus with some nostalgia wrapped in. And we saw this on there, and I was like, hey, let's watch an episode of this. And it actually held up way better than I remembered it being. And that led me to adding Wolverine and the X-Men. Only one season as number 3.
Great Nightcrawler design.
So, you know, Wolverine and the X-Men is like, it was launched during the release of X-Men Origins Wolverine. Only lasted for a season. And basically, it was like this psychic attack. A bunch of people attack the X-Mansion, and Wolverine has to become the leader of the X-Men. Fun fact, it was actually created by Thor Ragnarok writers Craig Kyle and Chris Yost. And I actually think it does some very interesting things because this was actually one of the few shows that was like being made when Disney first slapped up Marvel. You know, and in fact, the entire season builds to the Age of Apocalypse. The cliffhanger of this season is Age of Apocalypse. And I cannot believe we never got a season 2 on this one. But, you know, it's interesting. This has a lot of deep character stuff in it. It's where like Wolverine doesn't want to lead the X-Men by himself. He doesn't think that he can do a good job. Cyclops has basically gone into isolation because Jean was one of the people taken down by Jean Grey. And you know what? The animation style is pretty good in this.
It's cute. I like Kitty's got a great design as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't really look cheap. So for me, this was the most interesting. While I do admit that this is sort of a remix of some of the previous X-Men cartoons, especially the X-Men 90s version and a little bit of X-Men Evolution, it's the one that I think just executed it the best, and it's one of the few ones that I wish had gotten a second season. So Wolverine and the X-Men.
Nice.
My number 3.
Nice. I've only seen the Nightcrawler episode of that. It was great.
Yeah. We should watch the Age of Apocalypse one.
Done.
Ashley.
Yes.
What is your number 2?
My number 2 has a great theme song.
Reed Richards is elastic.
No, it's got less words in it than that.
So
Fun fact, this show originally aired on the CW as a kids WB program.
Weird.
Which, if you don't know why that's weird, that's okay.
Okay.
That's because, the WB is the DC channel now. This is a Greg Wiseman joint.
Oh, I know what show this is.
And it features the voice talents of Josh Keaton and James Arnold Taylor. This is Spectacular Spider-Man.
The Spectacular Spider-Man.
Do you know how the theme song goes?
I don't remember it.
It goes Spectacular, Spectacular Spider-Man
yes.
over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those annoying mid-2000s songs. Yeah.
Yeah, this was 2008.
Yeah.
I only watched this on Netflix because Jason said, you know what's a good show? Spectacular Spider-Man. And it is really good.
It is really good.
It's definitely heavily influenced by the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and that's okay, and I am totally here for it.
I actually think it's more heavily influenced off of Brian Michael Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man.
Very much
especially
so.
with the changes to Mary and Gwen.
I was going to bring up Gwen because they make Gwen, instead of this unattainable babe, which she definitely was in her original run, she is kind of Peter's ride or die. She's like Peter's really close friend. She's really smart and nerdy, and she wears glasses. I love Gwen Stacy anyway. I love this version of Gwen. I love this version of Mary Jane. I love that
Great version of Harry.
The version of Harry's such a sweetie, and when Harry starts to turn, it's really sad. I also think Josh Keaton is really talented.
It's pretty good Peter Parker.
And we watched this, and then we watched Green Lantern, the animated series,
he's Hal Jordan.
right after it. And Josh Keaton is so different in both of these and really evokes both of the characters so well. Keith David is in this show, and admittedly, this is Peter Parker's greatest hits. If you're familiar with Peter Parker, or even if you've only seen all the Spider-Man movies, you kind of we get the Lizard, we get Green Goblin.
It's also an advantage.
You get Gwen's dad in peril.
It starts the show in media res where he's already Spider-Man. Like he's been Spider-Man like since 6 months. Actually, I'm going to reveal to you this is also my number 2.
High five!
The Spectacular Spider-Man is also my number 2. It's really good. The first season is, I would say, easily the best Spider-Man cartoon of all time. The second season, they lose the rails a little bit.
They had to apparently rewrite season 2 pretty heavily, and the reason that season 3 didn't happen is because Disney and Sony couldn't get along.
Yeah.
Which is a real bummer because I wanted more of this.
So now here's an interesting thing about the show. I want to talk about Spectacular Spider-Man.
Sure.
Spectacular Spider-Man was being made around the same time as Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. In fact, the Spider-Man that shows up in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is Josh Keaton. It's this Spider-Man.
Oh, is it really?
Am I wrong about that? Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I'll look it up.
I think I'm sorry. I apologize. I think but the thing that happened to this show is the same thing that happened to Earth's Mightiest Heroes. They ended the show and then they immediately launched like another Spider-Man show because Ultimate Spider-Man canceled the show. And it's sad because in both those cases, because Avengers Assemble canceled Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the first show was better than the second show.
So the Spider-Man from Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is voiced by Drake Bell.
Oh, okay. That's Ultimate Spider-Man. My bad. I apologize. I got that wrong. I thought it was the same guy.
I wish. But Spectacular Spider-Man...
They give him a pointy head.
They do. Spectacular Spider-Man is also... It's so much better than it should be.
Yes.
And the animation kind of started... So I feel like after about 2008, which was when this show debuted... Animation, you could really see how they were using computers to fill in the gaps. And so at some points, this animation looks kind of cheap compared to even the 90s where there's still a lot of it being done digitally, but it's a lot more traditional. But some of
it has a very interesting style that doesn't look like any other Spider-Man cartoon.
It does, yeah. And it feels liminal. Like this is definitely like a growing moment for what the house style at Marvel is going to be, because it doesn't look like Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which is okay. But yeah, this show is so good. I can't recommend it enough. I love Spectacular Spider-Man.
It's really good. It's really good.
Really cute.
Even the second season that is full of venom and just not as good. But the first season is pretty spectacular, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And the only downside is that the show ends on a cliffhanger.
Yes, there's absolutely no resolution. But if you're a comic book fan, then you're used to that.
You're sort of used to that. Yep.
You'll be okay.
Yeah, it's my number 2 as well.
Yay!
Great choice.
So I guess it's my number 1.
It is now, Ashley, time to reveal your number 1. And I think we all know exactly which one this is going to be.
Well, why don't you tell everyone?
Because the minute you start saying, Reed Richards is elastic. Come on, let's start. What's your number 1?
Why don't you tell everyone what my number 1 is?
I actually don't know.
You absolutely do know.
Do I know?
Yes.
I don't know.
What's my favorite Marvel show?
I don't know.
I made you watch an episode the night we watched X-Men.
Oh, is this X-Men Evolution?
I love X-Men Evolution.
Ashley.
What?
Ashley, come on. X-Men Evolution.
X-Men Evolution rocks. It's so good.
Okay.
It's so good.
I'm glad you like it.
Do 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 do. It's so
Is that
good.
the theme song?
Yeah.
The theme song is like...
Do 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 do. Da na na na. Do 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 do. Na, na,
not as good as Sue can be.
These are our lists.
Thing just loves to fight.
These are not objective lists.
Rogue likes to touch lots of people.
She doesn't.
There's the guy that shoots his bones. Toad likes to jump over the backyard pond. And Wolverine likes to bone. I don't know.
Oh, man. Holy smokes.
That's not that crude.
Trying not to swear. This show...
Why is X-Men Evolution to you the greatest Marvel cartoon?
I've never loved anything as much as I've loved X-Men Evolution.
Okay.
That's why. It's very personal to me. I used to set my alarm clock for 10 a.m. on Saturday, so I would get up and watch X-Men Evolution. X-Men Evolution in Canada aired on YTV.
Okay.
Which is Youth Television Network.
Okay.
And that's because the voice recording was all done in Canada. So it was all outsourced talent. So we had access to it before a lot of other people. Kirby Morrow does the voice of Scott. He also did the voice of a lot of anime characters. He's Moroku in Inuyasha at the time. What I really loved about this was right when I was first getting into X-Men comics. This happened the same year as the first X-Men movie. And it takes them and puts them in a real world setting. They go to high school with all the non-mutants, and they're trying to live in that world. And what I loved about that was, as somebody who was very young and thought that high school was going to be fun, this felt like aspirational. And you could see it was a more down-to-earth version of the X-Men than the traditional 90s cartoon. And it's much more of a teen drama, which I think is what X-Men is at its core. It's soap opera. It's interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, easily.
And this felt more like watching your friends with weird powers than watching a bunch of superstars. And that's what I liked about it. And I like that Nightcrawler is important to it. Nightcrawler actually has a big growth, because when he first shows up, he's like kind of a dick, and he wants to be a ladies' man, and he's a jerk.
Was this 2 seasons or 3 seasons? I don't remember.
I believe it is 3. It's 4 seasons. There is 52 episodes.
Oh boy.
And so the first season is a little touch and go, because it is all of that teen drama stuff. Like, who likes who? Ooh, is Jean gonna let Scott kiss her? There's no romance with Wolverine.
Who's gonna sit next to me in the cafeteria?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because Wolverine and Storm are their teachers.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
The Brotherhood, this was the first thing for me as a kid that like explained what the Brotherhood was, and that they weren't just bad guys, because Rogue waffles between being a member of the Brotherhood and living in their crappy house in the middle of town and being a member of the X-Men, and you really get the sense that they're living in that gray liminal space instead of being villains. But in season 2, they add all these weird extra characters like Boom Boom, Sunspot, Iceman, Wolfsbane, Magma, Jubilee, and a couple other ones join the team.
All the X-Force characters.
Yes, and then we start getting little sub-teams, and they go out and they do their respective missions differently. And then in season 3, it's when we start doing really, really weird stuff. And then we get an Age of Apocalypse storyline, which is really cool.
I thought it was just a normal apocalypse story. It wasn't actually the Age of Apocalypse story.
Well, technically, but it is.
I just remember you showed me an episode of this.
It's inspired by the Age of Apocalypse. X-23 shows up in the final season.
Didn't she make her debut in animation before she made her debut in comics?
In NYX, yes, she did.
Yeah.
And that's just,
I knew this cartoon invented X-23.
It did. But yeah, for some reason, and it's probably because of the age that I was when I saw it, like, you're never going to get better than X-Men Evolution in my eyes. I know the animation is silly, and it's very much a staple of this time. They do port over a lot of the character designs to Wolverine. Like, the Wolverine and the X-Men is basically the Wolverine from this, just a bit taller.
Yeah, but weirdly, it seems like on Wolverine and the X-Men, they have a bit more money.
I think they absolutely.
The animation looks better.
The technology was probably better.
Yeah, the animation looks better. X-Men Evolution, and this is by no means a knock, it looks like there's a certain house style of mid-2000s cartoons.
It's exactly what this is, yes. And X-Men Comics had this as a look similar to this as well.
Yeah, there's a Turtles cartoon that came out around the same time, and these two shows look like they have the exact same animation style.
Yes. But yeah, this is just like to me, this is the most special X-Men cartoon.
That's cool.
It's the first X-Men cartoon that has a British Professor X.
Yes, because
as influenced by the
Patrick
TV
Stewart.
show. Christopher Judge is the voice of Magneto. Nice Canadian
Teal'c
boy.
himself.
And the final scene, I wrote this list down because Jason mentioned it when we rewatched the Apocalypse episode. You get to see a bunch of the new mutants, which include Gambit and Colossus, Boom Boom, Havoc, Angel, X-23, and then this is also the show that invented Spike.
Oh, yeah.
Who's now become a mainstay of the X-Men universe.
Sort of. He's kind of forgotten now.
But I mean, he shows up and people know who he is. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when we sat down to make this list, I was like, number 1, X-Men Evolution, no question. And again, it's because, and especially me, like these are my favorites. You're never going to beat X-Men Evolution. But now that I've screamed about my favorite thing, the time has come, Jason. Tell us why Fantastic Four is your number 1.
Reed Richards is elastic. Sue can vanish from sight.
That's too many syllables. It doesn't scan.
Johnny is the Human Torch, and Ben just likes to fight. Why does Ben just like to fight? That's the lyric that is so weird to me.
Because if you're going to distill a person's entire personality down into one sentence, I guess you don't want to be like, Ben poops orange rocks. I don't know.
No, if you've been listening, you know exactly what my number 1 is. My number 1 is, and this was easy, this was my number 1 choice right out of the gate. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is the greatest Marvel animated series of all time.
Por qué? Senor Inman.
This is something, you gave a lot of points towards this. You missed something that I thought was very interesting. The animation style of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes is very inspired by Bruce Timm.
Oh, yes. They all have very wide chests and very small feet.
And you know what? It really works. And it does something that, this is what I think a failing of most animated series. Excuse me.
He's getting really worked up.
Your look has to be distinctive.
Well, if Matt Groening, one of the greatest cartoon designers of all time, has taught us anything, it is that.
Yes. You remember the look of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes because they've changed the design. Avengers Assemble just looks like a million other cartoons. Spider-Man looks like a million other cartoons. The one thing you can say about X-Men Evolution is that X-Men Evolution has a very unique style. Doesn't look like the other X-Men cartoons. Spectacular Spider-Man, same thing.
Yes, very distinct.
This look is very clean. It looks very modern. I actually think it's going to make this cartoon age very well. Unlike Avengers Assemble is going to age very poorly in 10 years.
Yes.
It's going to look really bad. So, this is the ultimate remix show of Avengers comic book history. It is a love letter to anyone that has ever watched this theme. Not only did they started in this idea of like, okay, let's base this off the movies, but then they dug deep into the comic books to make it all work. And they did everything very smartly. It was completely serialized. Dr. Doom showed up before the Fantastic Four did.
Oh, yes. You love this detail.
So that you could hint at the Fantastic Four, so that when the Fantastic Four finally showed up, they actually mattered. They did a great job of making Ant-Man turn into Giant Man and to turn into all these other characters. The ongoing storyline of Ultron is really great in this movie. One of the best episodes of all time of this series, of any Marvel cartoon, is the new Avengers, where the Avengers go missing, and it's Spider-Man, Wolverine, Luke Cage, War Machine, Iron Fist, and the Thing, all having to figure out how do they do this without the Avengers. But the simple fact that makes this cartoon so great is the fact that they played an extremely long game by making their entire season 2 Secret Invasion, which was a very popular storyline. And again, like I said, they remixed. This cartoon also did Winter Soldier.
Yes, it does.
It does Winter Soldier. It does
and
all
he
these.
looks awesome.
And he's a great storyline. Now, again, it starts laying in the seeds that there are characters that you can't trust very early on. In fact, in one of the very first Fantastic Four appearances, because Doctor Doom knows that Sue Storm is a Skrull and nobody else does. And then you get the big reveal that's amazing in this, is that Cap changes his costume in season 2. And then you find out that Cap is a Skrull.
What?
Because he has the ultimate version of the costume, and that the original Cap is actually, you know,
I like that they dipped into the ultimate designs, because those costumes are incredible.
Yes, so the fact that they went crazy with these storylines, again, making it like the ultimate remix Marvel cartoon, it really gives it the same sense that the Batman the Animated Series does. Because Batman the Animated Series, if you look at it, is almost like an ultimate remix as well. But it figures out a way to do this, like, how do we do the most iconic, the purest version of said comic book story? And that's exactly what Avengers Earth's Mightiest Hero did. If you have not seen this show, I would highly recommend you. We said that this list was very hard, and this is hard. Marvel does not have a lot of great animated comic book series. They just really don't. I'm sorry. It's hard. This list was very hard. It's hard for these cartoons to be distinctive from each other without seeming like they're repeats, especially a lot of the Spider-Mans and a lot of the X-Men feel like they're the same cartoon over and over. This cartoon is very distinctive, and I think it's going to age very well, and I would highly recommend, simply put, this cartoon is almost a rival to Justice League the Animated Series.
Ooh.
That's how good it is. This is the closest cartoon that any Marvel cartoon has ever come to being the quality of Batman the Animated Series. It is Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Nice.
And that's why it's number 1.
There you go. What was there anything that almost made your list?
No.
So
sadly,
I almost put the original Hulk cartoon on my list.
Oh dear God, why?
Because when I was a tiny human, I loved it. Like, I can still sing the theme song. It's not great.
What is it?
Doc Bruce Banner, pelted by gamma rays,
like
turned into the Hulk. Yeah, where he runs, it's just the forest moving in the background. The character in the foreground is not moving. Yep. We didn't have fancy things like Agent Smash when I was a young person. They just reran old cartoons. But I watched a couple of them on YouTube, and friends,
oh boy,
they're not very good. Nope. But that was the only thing that I think if I had seen more than one episode of Wolverine and the X-Men, it probably would have made it onto my list, but I didn't feel like in good conscience, kind of like how you say how you need to read more than a couple issues of comics.
Yeah, totally.
I couldn't have added it. But other than that, nope, that's it.
All right, so let's go to the recommended reading. This is where you're going to find our top 3 picks from both of our lists. Easy clickable links. Go find them over on Amazon Prime Video, or actually just buy the Blu-rays or the DVDs of them if you want. And all of these series also are all on Disney Plus. They're all on Disney Plus, so go check them out.
May I tack an action figure spotlight onto this?
Please.
I have the X-Men Evolution Nightcrawler.
Yes.
Because there's only like 5 Nightcrawler action figures.
How'd you get that?
You gave it to me.
That's correct.
He looks amazing. I love him so much. He hangs on my lamp, and I will be featuring him on our social media.
It is a sad fact of the day that they never made Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes figures, and they should have.
It's because they knew they was going to cancel it.
Man, they would have looked so good. They almost look like, you remember that old video game series Disney Infinity?
Yes, I do.
That's kind of the design style almost of Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Well, they had Disney Infinity action figures.
What?
They had like the little amiibo thingies.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. That's like as close as you can get, as if you got like the cap from that or something.
Well, yeah, I was saying that those action figures look like Earth's Mightiest Heroes. See,
so we're saying
the exact same thing,
that's
actually.
as close as you can get. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, Lord. All right.
Let's not fight over action figures.
Look, I don't even care anymore. Let's move into where can they find the recommended read, by the way?
Oh, you can do that by going to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading, hanging out, clicking on those widgets, and steal some money from Jeff Bezos and give it to us so we can watch more cartoons.
Yes. Also, we want to hear your lists on the internet. You can do that at all our social medias. Actually, what are those?
Those are geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, or on Twitter at GHL Podcast.
Cool. We have plenty of podcasts left, but let's go into the honor roll. Ashley, what's that?
The honor roll is where if you go to Apple Podcasts and you open it up and you find Geek History Lesson and you give us 5 stars, we will read whatever you write. If you are an international person, not in the United States, and you would like to have your review featured, please take a screenshot of it and send it to geekhistorylesson@gmail.com because we don't have access to international iTunes/Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much, Apple, for not allowing us that. We do want to feature you, and please let us know where you're from, because not everybody does. So let us know where you're sending us your review from. Then we have 2 people joining the honor roll today. The first is Bookeen, who says, female co-host. I appreciate that Geek History Lesson is a good introduction to pop culture concepts. I enjoy learning about comic book characters that I don't really know much or anything about, but I love, in caps, that Ashley is there to bring a female voice to the show. Thank you, Bookeen. Very kind. And they are also joined by Patrick Pichel, who says, love this show. I'm sort of a comic book geek, which means I listen to 3 of these a day, which I love.
Oh, wow.
I wish to suggest that you guys do John Stewart, Captain Atom, and Orion. Also, I'm 12.
Oh, hey, what's his name again?
Patrick Pichel.
Hi, Patrick. How's it going? We already did John Stewart, so I hope you enjoyed it.
Let me tell you this, Patrick. You and me would have been friends when we were 12 for sure. We did. I think at the time when this comment came in, we had not released a John Stewart episode.
You know, you're right.
But we have a John Stewart episode. We don't have a Captain Atom episode.
No, we don't.
We have 2 Captain Marvel episodes, technically. 4 Captain Marvel episodes.
What? Where are you getting all these 4 Captain Marvels?
Well, we have the OG Carol Danvers, which no one should ever listen to. We have the book club on Captain Marvel. We have the best Captain Marvel stories with Brent Schoonover, and then we have the Shazam episode.
Oh dear Lord, we do have 4 Captain Marvels. I didn't know where you were getting this. I was like, weed killer. They're multiplying.
They are. They breed like rabbits. You know those Captain Marvels.
Apparently they do.
I will say I would love to do a Captain Atom episode.
Sure.
I know you have a lot of really interesting thoughts that you get into in Super Soldiers. For Orion, Patrick, my dude, gonna have to wait for that New Gods movie. But I've added you to our list. So welcome, Patrick and Bookeen, to the Teacher's Lounge.
Yes.
What's going on in Teacher's Lounge, Jason?
Well, because you joined the honor roll, you're welcomed into the Teacher's Lounge, or given a key, and over in the corner is a broom made up of unstable molecules created by Professor Richards.
What does Professor Richards teach?
Music, of course.
You know,
Reed Richards is elastic.
if I may say, in our Stargirl episode, you also introduced the music teacher.
Yeah.
So I believe his name is
This is a big school, Professor Bowie.
Right. So patron Noah, who I believe it's Noah Dalton, who makes our teachers roster, is now going to have multiple music teachers.
Hey man, it's all good. It's a big school.
Welcome to the honor roll. Thank you for your 5-star reviews. Please continue sharing them with us because it's one way that keeps us connected to you. It's my favorite segment in every show.
It is my favorite segment in every show. And speaking of other favorite segments and stuff like that, don't forget you can download this podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Basically I found a couple people recently reached out to me and said they only listen to us on Stitcher, and I was like, that's cool.
That is cool.
I used to be a Stitcher person.
Yes.
Now I listen on Overcast.
Yes.
That's right. Ashley, a couple months ago, we of course have a Patreon.
Yes.
Over at patreon.com/Jawiin. And if, you're into supporting the podcast more, you can go over there. We do 5 to 6 extra podcasts a month.
Especially depending on how many weeks are in the
Exactly.
year.
And you can go listen to our Geek History Lesson extra episode that'll be up when this episode is live about other Marvel characters that deserve animated series. That'll be that episode. But a couple months ago when we ran a Kickstarter for our comic book Jupiter Jet and the Forgotten Radio over at Kickstarter, we said that if any of our patrons donated and helped us out, we'd give them a shout out on Geek History Lesson, and this is the time to do that.
Oh boy, please.
So these are some of the patrons that helped make Jupiter Jet a thing, and we wanted to give them a shout out here. Or these are the ones at least that emailed us and told us that they donated.
Yeah, because
there is one name missing off this list that I know, and we'll give them a shout out anyway.
We love each and every one of you, but we don't have time to double check all 700 people who donated to the Kickstarter.
So here are some shout outs. John Mariano.
Kyle, who declines to share his last name.
Diego Nunez.
Calvin Scott.
Or as Balooey.
Yes, Balooey is his username, but his real name is Calvin.
Balooey's a cool name.
Yes, we met him at Comic-Con.
Frankie Gann.
Cody Bond, nice Canadian boy.
Christian Jewell, that's a Bond villain.
Yes, Jonathan Bioni.
Nathan McKenzie.
Our Aussie listener.
Yes, we love Mr. McKenzie.
Lance Kaminsky.
Good old and reliable Tom Trainer.
Yes. James, who also declines to share his last name.
Good old and not quite as reliable, but pretty reliable, Russ Walker.
Brock Severson.
The fantastic and spectacular Elliot Bennett.
Jake Hefner.
The wonderful Christopher Murphy.
David A. Skelton.
The elastic Diamond Wang.
Kirby Teleski.
The sensational James Barnaby.
Ramon Fernandez.
The frightful and sensational Albert Weirdorama.
I asked him
yes,
how
I
to
know.
say his last name.
I'm sorry, Albert. You're a great guy.
That's okay. And Anthony Pineda.
And then there's one last name. I know a good friend of the podcast and my good friend Jeremy Skinner also donated to the Kickstarter.
Yes,
and
because Jeremy is a very sweet lad who's helping us complete Operation New Microphones. Supports everything we do. We love you, Jeremy.
That is
High
correct.
Flash.
So there you go. Yes. Don't forget, guys. Thank you to all of them. We especially enjoy that you guys support us over at Patreon, and you also supported our comic books. That's really great. So again, that's just one of the ways where you should go over to the Patreon and support us over there, because that's how you get shout outs on the show. And I don't know, but you know what? We'll see who's listening at this point.
Ooh.
We have considered opening up shout outs on the podcast on the Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's something that you would be interested in, tell us over at our Twitter for the show. Ashley, where is that?
@GHL Podcast.
Yeah, go tell us over at GHL Podcast that, like, if we opened up that every week you'd hear your name on Geek History Lesson at the end of the episode, that would make you donate, then, maybe we'll do it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
We're always open.
Yeah, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jawiin, Jawiin. Follow Ashley on Twitter and Instagram at Ashley V. Robinson. And now we're to the final section of the podcast, #stick around, where we make sure you listen through all our plugs. And at this point of the podcast, I know Ashley's going to join me in a rendition of the Fantastic Four theme song.
Reed Richards is a dickhead.
Actually, what is the stick around, Ashley?
The stick around is the part where we make sure you stick through all the plugs.
No, I mean, what are we actually talking about?
I don't know. What are we talking about?
Oh, we're not.
Was I supposed to write that?
I thought so.
I don't have one.
Do you have any thoughts about my choices, or any thoughts about your choices, or anything like that?
My choices are better.
That's not helpful. Or a discussion.
Do you think that Marvel should be more active in pursuing cartoons that are not X-Men or Spider-Man based?
Yes.
Because we always have them, and that's great. But we have a Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon, for example, starring Terry McGinnis himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the movies have really proven that you can do weirder things. And obviously, we're going to get into this a little bit more in the extra. But you would like to see more shows that are not Spider or X shows.
Yes, 100%. But it's the same as the DC problem is that DC always makes a Superman, a Batman, or a Justice League cartoon.
Yes.
But I will say this. Although we've had, since Batman the Animated Series, we've had Batman the Animated Series, we've had Batman Beyond, I would count Justice League because Batman's there. We've had The Batman. Mm-hmm. We've had Batman Brave and the Bold. We've had Beware the Batman, and I'm going to count Justice League Action. So we've had 7 Batman cartoons since 1990. But I'll tell you what, at least they're all distinct. Mm-hmm. They're all different. Like Batman Brave and the Bold is a Silver Age thing. Justice League is a team up. Batman Beyond is a future thing. The Batman was like, let's do anime style. Beware the Batman was like, what if he partnered with an older Alfred? Mm-hmm. Whereas like Avengers Assemble is basically Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, just with a not as good art style.
It's been reskinned. They truly could have just rebranded that show and told different stories with it.
Yeah, actually, to be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't. And it tends to be the thing now that Marvel does is if you notice every season of Avengers Assemble, it's just called a different name.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
We know that Disney Plus has some Marvel branded shows coming at some point
live action
in the future. We know that one of the shows coming is animated.
What if?
Yes. Would you like to see Marvel animated shows in the future be Disney Plus offerings?
Sure. I mean, I don't need Marvel animated shows to tie into the MCU. But yes. I mean, again, we're going to talk about this a lot on the Patreon, so I don't want to give any ideas because there is a character that I think that is screaming to be made into a cartoon, and I cannot believe they haven't done it actually. They need better cartoons. They have such a bigger universe. I cannot believe they haven't done it.
Yes, I agree.
There used to be a Silver Surfer cartoon in the 90s.
Yes,
it is quite awful, but at least it existed.
Hey, you know what's interesting about Marvel cartoons?
I don't know.
And I don't mean this to be a knock because I think there are very talented people who've done voiceovers in the Marvel cartoons. They never stick around long enough to, I don't know if I have a definitive voice for characters.
Nope.
The way like Kevin Conroy and Susan Eisenberg are like, that's my Batman and that's my Wonder Woman.
And for me, Tim Daly is my Superman.
Yeah.
And George Newbern is really great.
My closest is probably Bradley Swale, who's the voice of Nightcrawler in X-Men Evolution.
You know, and weirdly, I would say if you were to ask me who's my favorite Spider-Man voice, my pick for that is Yuri Lowenthal because he voiced the game.
Oh,
and he's so good in that game.
Yes,
and I've known Yuri for quite a bit.
We're gonna get Yuri on.
We've tried to get Yuri on.
We've been working.
Yeah,
on
Yuri is like such an excellent dude, and he's an acquaintance of ours. And
he's also very booked and blessed.
He's very busy. But I will say that I was like blown away that. Because I've never heard him sound like that. So I kind of was like, holy crap, Yuri, I didn't know you could be Spider-Man. You're correct. There is no definite voice actors, which is, I think, also a detriment to their universe. Because, right now, like, every Darkseid that is cast in any DC animated thing has to measure up to Michael Ironside.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, I don't mean this to be a knock on the talent because I think there are incredibly talented people who've worked over there. I guess it's more of a knock on the way the show's structured.
Jason O'Mara is definitely digging himself a platform for a Batman.
Yes.
Because he's voiced so many of the DC animated movies now.
Another lovely human.
Yeah, he's really great.
Yeah.
He's really great. But yeah, there's not a single... God, I can't name you any of them. Like, they're all kind of generic.
Yeah, and maybe, in our last episode, we talked about the great Andrea Romano, and maybe that's...
The secret sauce?
The secret sauce is, you need someone who's going to really dig in there and fight for those actors and demand that level of performance. I don't know.
Yeah. I will say Will Friedle is a great choice for Star-Lord, to voice Star-Lord. And then Kevin Michael Richardson does Groot, which is also a great choice.
Here's a real quick story to end the podcast with if you're still stuck around. The first press event that I ever covered was the pre-set visit for the Guardians of the Galaxy animated series that we're talking about. You said
there's a recording, right?
Yeah, we went to the recording studio in Burbank that they record at. And I remember telling you about it, and you were like, Will Friedle? That's Batman Beyond. And he was really lovely, and he recorded a hello for Jason.
He did.
And he was so nice.
Very nice.
Also, David Sobolov, who is the voice of Gorilla Grodd, was there, and Vanessa Marshall, who went on to be the voice of Hera, was also there. That cast is...
Was he Drax?
Yes.
Sobolov?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That cast is stacked for a cartoon that I feel like nobody's watching.
I've heard it's good. I've never seen it.
Yeah, me either.
Never seen it.
Well, and that's the problem is a lot of it was on Disney XD, and Jason and I don't have Disney XD. So there's my story. Thank you for sticking around extra long. Let's go. We're gonna pop over to the Patreon, so we'll see you there. Yeah.
I guess Ashley's told us what to do. We're going over there. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to Geek History Lesson this week. We hope you enjoyed our choices. And if you want to fight us on the internet, don't. I am Jason. I just like to fight Inman.
Oh, boy. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Professor Jason, would you please dismiss the class in a non-confrontational manner?
Reed Richards is elastic. Sue can. Oh, God damn it. I missed it already.
I told you not to start a confrontation.
I know. I had the lyrics and everything. Call the Four, Fantastic Four, fantastic. What was it really like? What was David Bowie really sad? On an outer space adventure, they got hit by cosmic rays, and the four would change forever in some most fantastic ways. Reed Richards is elastic. Sue can fade from sight. Johnny is the Human Torch. The Thing just loves to fight.
Did they meet
All
Major
the
Tom?
Four, Fantastic Four. Ground control to Fantastic Four.
No, ground control to Herbie bot.
No, that's it. I think we've wasted the people's time enough. Goodbye.
Bye.